Us, yeah. Ryan had said he just can't do it from now on until he feels better or whatever.
Funk, thoughts deep, boys steeped in the depths that he sunk. Big stress, depressed in the middle of fall. Sky gray, I late in the thick of it all. I wonder, how long can a human survive just staying alive or carrying the rest of the tribe? Waiting for the day to arrive or struggling dies, and I be doing way more than getting by. So why? Cop myself a cup of coffee, sipping water in the softly, cleansing me of stress I hold. Myself a cup of coffee, sipping water when it's softly, cleansing me of stress I hold. I needed me some rainy days, so I needed me some rainy days, so for the weary, so we teary eyes realize life is so much more than just living a day. Every day I can sit and reflect and reconnect to myself and all that I've been given. See, giving up is not an option. So when I'm looking at gray skies, I'll be adopting a new way to deal with a test. Lord, relieve me of stress. The rain be looking like when blessings drop in. And so I cop myself a cup of coffee, sipping water in it softly, cleansing me of stress I hold. Water in it softly, cleansing me of stress I hold. Hey, here we go. Yeah, let's do this. Y'all ready? 1, 2, 3. In times of test, let no harm beset me, oh my Lord, oh my Lord.
Good evening, everybody. This is Divided We Stand. I'm Brian Weinstein. It is Sunday evening, and we are in the middle of the summer right now. It's July the 20th, and we're moving forward. Yes, indeed. This is Divided We Stand. If you're unfamiliar with this channel, this is the Divided We Stand channel on YouTube. We are not a monetized channel, which means we're not looking for money, and it also means you're not going to see commercials every few minutes. That's not part of our game, and I'm sure YouTube doesn't like it. At least their algorithms don't. But that's too bad for them, at least for right now. We also have a page, a group on Facebook called, appropriately enough, the Divided We Stand group page. We ask that you become a member there. Also, there are a few questions that are voluntary to answer, but we ask that you become a member as long as you're not a Trumper and willing to cause problems for us, because we want to commiserate, we want to come up with ideas, we want to figure this thing out before we go in the shitter. So, yeah. Tonight we're going to be talking about a multitude of things with my co-host, David Price. Perhaps we'll be talking about Stephen Colbert, maybe Epstein, maybe some other things, such as that strange event where Coldplay was playing and CEO was caught, I assume, having an affair that night. But we'll get into that in a little bit, so hang on. And anyway, yeah, so I'd like to turn to my good friend and journalist, writer, former educator. That would be our David Price. Dave, how are you doing tonight from Arlington?
Well, let's see. Donald Trump is president still. So as long as he is president, I will have something to do, which I spent a lot of time doing last week, and that's protesting in Washington, D.C. Obviously, things have changed. And I thought before I do the three things we're going to talk about tonight, I thought I'd bring this in because it's interesting. So there were a series of protests, as there are every week. 2 big days. Thursday was nationwide with the John Lewis Make Good Trouble. And Saturday, yesterday, they had a number of them around. But the one that I went to was at the White House, and it was Release the Files. Now, if you were to look at those crowds, you'd say, man, that's not many people. But what's happening is, as it has so many other things, social media, YouTube, all that has changed protesting. I mean, it's changed everything, obviously. Yeah, Brian, write down every word I say because it is gospel.
It is important.
You should do that.
Yes.
I know that.
I'm writing shorthand. That's why I'm getting everything.
You're writing with short hands. Well, if your fingers are short, you know what that means, because Trump's fingers are very short. Anyway, so we were talking about, and some people were a little discouraged. I said, well, here's my view. With social media, you can have 50 rallies and total the people and you can see them immediately if something happens in Idaho, Mexico, wherever. And it's kind of a collective crowd. Back in the day, when I first started protesting in the late 60s, you came to Washington, D.C., you had 100,000 people, and, that gave you some media coverage. Now you get media coverage all over the place. Especially young people are getting their news on anywhere from Facebook to TikTok to YouTube. Facebook being mostly for older people. So the point is, if you go out to any of these rallies, marches, protests, do not get disappointed because there's not a lot of people there. That is, think of it collectively. Think of it as people all over showing their, shall we say, dissatisfaction, to put it mildly, with Trump. And there you are. Now, we said we kind of adopted a new format for our show starting last week, and we'll be doing it through the summer. If it works, we'll extend it. And basically, that's I'll pick 3 topics, then you get to pick the order in which we go.
Sure.
So the three things, and I don't always even mean they're the most important, but
right.
Somewhere in significance, importance, or interest. So I think last week, and again, focusing on Trump at all times. So first of all, of course, you have the Epstein disaster, whatever that is. It changes with the minute. It changes with who you're talking to. It changes with what news media organization is reporting it, or who is saying what. So definitely we have to talk about that.
Right.
Then you have the very scary what happened to Stephen Colbert. Now, we know that Stephen Colbert will be fine. He's got plenty of money. Another network will pick him up. But what it is, it's a real blow to democracy. And we'll talk about that. Why it's so important. So like I said, somebody was, well, Colbert will be fine. Well, that's true. But will democracy be fine? Will America be fine? I'm not so sure if companies continue doing what Paramount did, dismissing. And of course, as we're in now, we're in an age of untruth, mistruth, distruth, whatever you call it. And I'm almost 100% that the rationale they gave is not true. And then I wonder, this is kind of a quirk, but I really want to hear some, and I'd love to hear some audience opinion on this too. Trump this week lied. Gee, there's a shock, right? But there are lies and stupid lies and lies. I'm sure the CEO, which you mentioned, who got caught on the Coldplay kiss cam, I'm sure initially he told some lies because that's what you do, right? I mean, to try to get out of something. But Trump has gone beyond that. He lies, I think, I don't even know if he knows the truth. And the one that I want to examine tonight is a minor thing, but it's a major thing at the same time. And what that is his fabricated story linking his uncle, a professor at MIT, to the Unabomber. Now, who in their right mind would bring that up? Gare, I wouldn't argue with that. I think, though, that age is, I just think it's past. I think, again, you can have large protests, but they don't have to be in Washington, D.C. You've got large crowds in New York, you've got large crowds in San Francisco, and it may be more effective to have a small crowd in Alabama or Idaho than everybody here in D.C. But time will tell. And I think what will happen, Gare, is this. I think that with the focus, as more people get hurt, more people will join our cause. Okay? Right now, it's still kind of theoretical, and Trump is on, it's off, he's on, he's off, whatever. So, Brian, of those three, which one you want to start with?
Well, as I said, I think I want to start with the Colbert one. Not that it is the most important, it's not, but it's just the thing that's been on my mind of late, although the Epstein situation and how the reaction to it is really, really bothering, probably in the end more than anything. But the thing with the Colbert situation, Dave, is that, I mean, look, Paramount, CBS, they say this was a financial decision. They said that they were losing $40 million a year, which could be a possibility. I don't know. A lot of people watch these things on the internet after the fact. But it was the number one show for 9 consecutive years. Okay, that's if you want to look at the timeline, we go back 9 years. This show has been number one late night.
Now, Brian, just to clear it up for anybody who's confused, that's number one in its time slot.
Yes,
not the number one show on the network.
No.
Well,
no.
I just said somebody might confuse that.
Right, so. They might. Right, absolutely. You spoke well. So you have that situation. Then you have the $16 million settlement that Paramount had with Trump for the 60 Minutes show. And then Colbert, 3 days before he was canceled, he makes a comment saying that this was, as he put it, a big time bribe, a big fat bribe. So already now the proximity to the situation already starts making you think. Okay, and then what else we have here? 16 the settlements. We have the merger. There's a merger that we have with Paramount and I wrote that down too. Skydance. There's going to be a merger which has to be approved by Trump. So again, that makes you wonder, are they making a deal with Trump? And as you said, you don't believe them. And who would? Of course, they're publicly going to say, well, this is the reason we did this. We're losing $40 million. But in general, most of the major networks are losing out to streaming anyway. So it's not really the fault of Stephen Colbert. So when you add all of these up, Dave, something stinks. And
yes.
And you see how Trump is a transactional president. I don't even like to call it transactional because he's just a mob boss to me, and he's trying to shake everybody down. That's essentially what he does. It's just one shakedown after another. And it would not be unreasonable to think that this is just another goddamn shakedown. And Colbert's not going to tolerate it. I think this is one guy, he has character. He lives by a code. And as Gary said, the next 8 months should be fantastic. I mean, who knows? Maybe they'll get rid of him before then. Now, of course, the contract ends in May of 26. So technically, they want to keep him there, and they wouldn't really have a replacement. But who knows what Colbert's going to do? But I think he's going to push the limits, and I think he's not going to wait at all because he kind of does it anyway. What say you?
Okay. Well, what say I is there's no question. We don't know if Trump suggested, hey, get rid of Colbert and I'll do you. I don't think that's what happened, really. I think this is a anticipatory move on the part of Paramount to make it seem like we're taking care of you, Donald, and we won't allow anyone to attack you. Now, of course, why they're doing it is the way you pointed it out. There's a couple things going on. There is the merger, which has to be approved. And if this were an isolated incident, it wouldn't bother me. But it's part of a pattern we're seeing. Mm-hmm. Look at the people. Just figure out who you were watching. Where's, let's see. Who do we have? Where's Jim Acosta right now?
Right, he's got to go to Substack.
He's not. He's not on the air. Where's Joy Reid right now? Substack, not on the air. Now, there's a good and a bad to that. The good is Substack is founded on the idea of opposition to Donald Trump. It will never change. The only way it would be like there are a couple other organizations out there that are just as good. And the only way they will be silenced if they were imprisoned. That was it. There's no other way they will be silenced. So we get to hear voices. We also get to hear voices that don't have to do anything with the network censors. Now, censorship of the network is nothing new. One of the greatest shows of the 60s, the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour,
right,
was let go by CBS, and it was a ratings juggernaut for getting viewers who didn't watch TV, because young people, that was kind of the start in the 60s. You know, as you got to be a little bit older, you kind of moved away from TV. Now, you pointed out something that also bears into this. TV is not what it was.
Right. And that's a legitimate claim that made about
because right, it used to be. I mean, it would be interesting. You know, you don't get this now. But if the Beatles were to magically, if a group like the Beatles, there can't be one, but if there were one, you know, everybody had their TV tuned to Channel 10 that night, CBS, for the Ed Sullivan Show. Those days are long gone. And if you don't believe that, I would suggest it's kind of fun. Go back and look at the ratings of shows like that, and then see the ratings of shows today. And they're just across the board. What would you guess, Brian? And Gary, you're kind of an expert on television or entertainment world. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say there's at least 300 channels that are satellite now. And that's not counting the cable channels.
Okay.
That's just counting, you know, Tubi and Fubar and Netflix and all of these things, and more coming every day. A lot more people are cutting the cord. And what that basically means, for anyone who doesn't understand, that is, in other words, I don't have any links anymore. Everything I do is through the computer or satellite. So I don't have that. I don't have Comcast cable or whatever. You also have a very divided nation. Very few people who are MAGA would watch Colbert.
Right.
So there is a limited audience. But certainly, I find it very suspicious, as you pointed out, that you take the top-rated show in its category and in its time slot and say, losing money. Now, is it losing money? Yes. But there was once upon a time when if news was actually not designed to lose money, but they knew it was going to lose money. If you study the history of TV broadcasting, Brian, and again, everybody should just kind of, do you know how long the first broadcasts were?
Well, I just remember, you're talking about the news broadcasts?
News broadcasts, yes. The very first ones. Before our time, almost.
That's before you. Again, I remember them being a half an hour, so you can.
They started out as 15 minutes, and that was it. And that's what the networks felt. ABC, NBC, and CBS, they could, a lot to it because it was never a big money maker. So this idea of making money for everything, no, it's a bribe. Now, here's what I don't get, and again, I'd love anybody that's listening to us tonight I'm directing it to you, Brian, but it's to anybody out there. I do not get this. There is no way to appease Donald Trump in perpetuity. What do I mean by that is, he is transactional to the moment. Now, if I gross someone out, I apologize. But you could give him the best blowjob of his life that sent him into orgasmic screaming, and as soon as it's done, he says, okay, now what are you going to do for me? That's the type of person he is. So how do you even begin to appease him? Also, if you study the history of bullies, most of the time, bullies don't stop. So he feels emboldened. I mean,
Right.
think about that. Think about that for a moment. You're the guy who got Stephen Colbert fired.
Right.
He already has a big ego. He always has power. So, is this a bad thing for America? Absolutely. Now, as you also notice, you've got people jumping back in supporting him, but of course they're going to do that. Kimmel is going to support him. Fallon's going to support him. Jon Stewart, who they're very good friends, spent all those years together. Stewart came out with an interesting one, though. He believes, because he's also Paramount Comedy Central, he believes he will be canceled too.
Right.
And he probably will be. So all of a sudden they're shutting down a voice, a very important voice. And I know one of your favorite comedians, we talk about him often, is Lenny Bruce. Mm-hmm. And today's Lenny Bruces are the Jon Stewarts and the Stephen Colberts. No offense to Jimmy Kimmel, no offense to Jimmy Fallon, but they were comics first. Stewart and Colbert are a different breed. They're a hybrid news and comic, both. So we may be seeing the death of something that has been an important part of showing the opposite side, and not just with Trump. What did they say? I read today, and again, I wish I'd written it down and I didn't, but I believe in two calendar, or I don't think it was. I think it was just one term of Clinton's. Jay Leno mentioned him 4,500 times. Picking on him, obviously, not praising him. Bill Clinton, what did he do? Nothing. Lyndon Johnson, famously, who was very controlling, said, no, say whatever you want. I mean, that's something, and that's basically what we're losing. Basically, again, I do know this as a journalist, there are two no-nos in journalism, and only one really apply. It's libel and slander. Okay, slander is when you say something false about a person. Libel is when you write something false about a person. I suppose in this case, since it's a spoken script, but it's written, maybe you could sue for libel and slander, but I think you'd have to pick one. But the hard part to prove is it's with malicious intent. And who knows, what was it? Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of man? So it's very hard. So news media organizations can stand up, but they don't want to, not because they don't have the money. So anyway, that's my thoughts. I think it's.
As one last thing, David, I wanted to just a generality, but
right.
I don't know. Do you remember a film? I think it was in the late '70s or early. It was called Breaker Morant. It was actually a movie that was based on the Boer War, and it was a true story about an Australian military man officer named Harry Morant. They called him Breaker. And during the Boer War, the Boers were used. It was obviously the Germans against the British, but the Australians were helping the British, and a lot of the opposition were dressing up like religious people, and they were terrorists, and then they would actually start firing on the Australian, and they had to do something about it. So he used what was called Rule 303, which wasn't a rule; it was just the bullet they had. It was a rifle had a 303 bullet. But he said, and he got railroaded, and they shot him. Somebody had to put him down because they wanted to make a deal with the war and end it, but they wanted him killed. So they put him up to be shot him right in the middle of the head. But Morant said this, and this is something I think applies to my philosophy of what's happening with Colbert. And this is something that Morant did say. He said, all great decisions are personal. And I think this is one where you have to keep thinking in terms of that. You won't always come out just like, for example, what happened with Morant. I think it was Lord Kingston or something made a decision. I can't remember the entire history of what happened with Morant. But he was killed. Two people. There's a guy named Hancock that was killed. and he knew he was going to be railroaded, but he knew the situation. And then after he was shot, the war was over, and they just kind of hid the fact that he had to be sacrificed. And in this case, I think this is what, and it's been going on, as you said. This is the pressures, and we, not only Stewart, but I think Kimmel's worried about it now.
Well, sure, you would have to be.
It's frightening.
And think about, change. Let's get all the cliches in the show tonight, but change is the only constant. But think about how long late night TV, which means the 11:30 to, used to be what, 11:30 to 1.
Right.
And then Carson got it down to 11:30 to 12:30, and that made another show follow it.
Right.
So like you had Stewart followed by the Colbert Report, and I still think Colbert Report. I like Stephen better then. He's great now, but that was such.
Well, it was a great 1-2 punch, that's for sure. I mean, you couldn't beat it.
There were conservatives at the time who believed Stephen Colbert was the conservative that he played. He was playing a role, but they believed that, and it also was. I think it was a good transition for young people to news because, like a lot of college kids, okay, they study till 11:30, and then we'll watch Stewart, and then we'll watch Colbert, or we'll watch Leno, or we'll watch Carson for whatever it was. It also was a good kind of take on the country. Now, one of the things that Carson was not political by nature. He was a different kind of comic. But hey, Ms. Blue Ocean.
Hi, Sandy.
Yeah, but what we have happened is there were two types of kind of hosts. But the original talk show was morning. Jack Parr, Dave Garroway, the Today Show, which then segued into the night, and then Jack Parr then gave way to Johnny Carson. And they were more, like I say, Bob Hopian Bob Hope type comics, in that they didn't really make disparaging remarks, about things. But then we got this new breed who comes out, and it was also a great training ground for young comics and comic writers to come out of this. And there's some still brilliant ones. Of course, you had Saturday Night Live. Is that still relevant? Will that be attacked? So certainly it is not favorable to Trump. Now, Donald Trump, it appears, if you say the least bad thing about him, it affects him. He's president of the United States. Why should he worry? He got elected.
Right.
I mean, it's not like, oh, they attacked me and I'm less. No, he's at the top. Why would a person at the top? It's because Donald Trump is who he is. We've never had a president who has been able to demonstrate this much fascist, authoritarian, tyrannical power. Never, ever, ever, ever. Nixon looks like a choir boy compared to Donald Trump. So, again, my summation of this, Colbert will be fine if we worry about him. My question is, what does it do to political humor? And what does it do to late night TV? And what does it do to a separation where you expect the news media to speak truth to power? And what we have is, let's kiss ass and get some more money. That's my take on it.
All right. So we're going to move on, folks. I guess we'll go into Epstein now.
Sure. Why not? All right. This is the thing that will not go away. Now, everyone out there knows that I am no defender of Donald Trump whatsoever. However, I've been doing a lot more of cross-checking attacks on him, and there's just so much misinformation out there. It is incredible. Okay, I don't know. I'm going to call attention. I don't know how many of you out there are on Facebook, but if you are, and Brian, I don't know if you've seen them, there are 5 pictures, 1 in the center and 4 around them, usually, is the way it works. And they're all, first, they're AI pictures, and secondly, the story says something like, Jason Kelsey and Taylor Swift just gave $7.2 million to families. Now, I don't know what you get from it. Is it somebody just laughing and saying, look at the dumb people, what they believe? I don't see any money out of it. Do you know what I mean? But it's everyone. There's one of Dolly Parton crying over her husband, which is obviously AI generated. And so, on the one hand, you have this. So even about this Epstein thing, you have these things going on. But the Wall Street Journal, owned and operated by one of the people who history will say, if America falls, was one of the architects of its failure, Rupert Murdoch, who is a horrid, smelly old man, who said basically, don't worry about the truth, make us money. That's
Right.
his motto. It's always been his motto. He got it honestly. He comes from an Australian news background, and he actually got run out of Australia. They were didn't like what he was. So he set up shop in England. Now, England's always had an interesting kind of relationship with its journalists. They almost expect it. Like they have page 5, page 7 anyway. They have a naked woman in there, semi-naked. I mean, they're much different operation than we are. And they were very controversial. There, it is very common for reporters to pay sources for information. It's just something that here, that's like a no-no, and it should be. It's like the kind of rules, get the story, whatever. If you're a woman, you want to use your wiles, or if you're a man, you want to use your wiles. And Murdoch, of course, then transports it over here with two big purchases. First is Fox News, and secondly is the Wall Street Journal and some other American traditions. Now, the Wall Street Journal has always been conservative. It's what I guess you could say it's the New York Times of finances. I mean, it's the paper of record,
Right, exactly.
for finances. It's the New York Times, the paper of record. But what happens is they get a hold of a story, and I will give the Trump supporters, not the supporters, but the people who says, I don't know how big a story it was, but Trump helped make it even bigger. And basically, the story is, I think it was for his 50th birthday, a group of people, I don't know if he solicited it or it was unsolicited, got together and made like a scrapbook kind of thing of personal greetings to Mr. Epstein. And one of those was Donald Trump. And basically, it consisted of two parts, kind of a greeting kind of thing. But there was a couple of lines in there that you go, what the hell's that? It sounded like keep our secret lives going or something like that. There was something about secret. Well, that makes you wonder. Right. And the second thing is there was a drawing, which was kind of a doodle, but it was a woman with breasts was what he was trying for. Now, Donald Trump comes out and says that story is absolutely not true. And in all of his denials, you see the real Donald Trump. Now, I know this is a minor point, but this bothers the shit out of me, that this man is president of the United States and he says this. He said, that can't be. I don't write pictures. Who the fuck says I don't write pictures? I don't draw pictures. I don't doodle pictures. I don't deal with art. You don't fucking write pictures, you dumb fucking orange man. You don't. He doesn't. I mean, what's that? All right. Now, he also says, let's assume for a moment, take it, and he meant I don't draw pictures. The New York Times has produced at least 4 where he sold them at auctions of his doodles.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Did they have a similarity in style?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Now, we do know that he draws with the marker.
The markers.
Yeah. Now, so what is so fascinating about this story is how many stories have been. This is the one that is the first one to upset his supporters. Really, if you look at it. Now, whether they say upset, I don't know. But they really are. And I think because so many of them believed this to be true. Pedophilia was running wild in America. The pedophiles were the Democrats. And the Democrats were protecting the pedophiles. And the one that I know the best is the Pizzagate. Mm-hmm. I've said it before in the show. It's a place I go all the time. Supposedly all this was being transpired in the basement, and they don't have a basement. So, automatically. But that story got so much traction and so much play in mind that a gentleman from North Carolina got his guns, drove to Washington, D.C., went out Connecticut Avenue, parked, and went in with guns loaded to save the kids. So this thing,
Jeff.
yeah, wrote the Mona Lisa. Yeah, it's true. But so now, of course, the voices chime in. Donnie Jr. My dad doesn't do whatever. I don't think there's any question in my mind that he and Epstein had a relationship. No question, none, zilch, zero. There is no question in my mind that they were in the presence of young girls. Now, a cautionary note. Remember I said about AI? The number one picture out there that they're using, not of Epstein and Trump, but there's one, have you seen it, with Trump with a young girl?
Yes.
That is not a
I know
fake
it's
picture.
bullshit, and yeah, I know.
No,
and it doesn't hurt our cause. I mean, it doesn't help our cause.
But no, but it's a fake picture.
Right.
And that's, that's not good. Use enough there. Now, what is it? How many women now? 27, 21, whatever.
I think it was 27.
27 women have claimed that Trump did something inappropriate sexually. We know for a fact, in his own words, when he was running Miss Universe, he would walk into their dressing room. He bragged about that. We know that he felt that he had the right to grab women by the pussy, his own self-admission. But maybe, just maybe, I don't think it's so much that his supporters are distancing themselves because of the fact of pedophilia, although it's part of it. I think it's the fact that some of them are coming to the realization that Trump lied the first time.
But yet I've heard that the poll numbers amongst Republicans are up right now.
Not true. No, that's being false again. Little Willie, what's his name? Willie Johnson, little tiny guy who runs around, thinks he's boss of the House. He said, this is what happened. He said Donald Trump's poll numbers are 92%. Donald Trump's poll numbers are dropping across the board. Mm-hmm. They're cratering. But again, you've got lying about it. Then people begin to believe it, and then people like you, well-news people. Why? I think that no. And again, look.
At least I know Bannon is saying, and we can't trust Bannon, that this is great for Trump. That everybody's going to rally behind him now.
Not going to happen. Not going to happen. And I'll tell you why. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because of this. Donald Trump, between now and the midterms, can only lose support. He can't gain support. He can't. Everybody who supports Donald Trump is on board now. Not going to get too many. Well, maybe get a few 18-year-olds, but some of his 70-year-olds will die.
Which means he's going to have to do everything to cheat in these elections in the midterms.
That's true. If we have them.
If we have them.
And then another thing is the fact that these chinks are being good. Who knows I don't know which side Bannon's on anymore. One day he's talking about Trump good, the next day it's bad. We know that Elon Musk and Trump have had a falling out. We know that Elon Musk said, quote, that Trump is in the Epstein files. We know for a fact that the FBI, the new FBI, which you might as well say the new Cosa Nostra, looked at 1,000 pages, went through it with a fine-tooth comb. What were they looking for? References to Trump. Mm-hmm. And what would they do if they found him? They would take it out. So I think we're very naive to think that we will ever see the real Epstein files. Right. But there are enough people who have seen them.
And might have a copy somewhere.
And there you are.
I think Veg is right. They're going to be deleting these things, but hopefully somebody still has something on.
But here's the thing. When you send out redacted files, and we used to deal with them quite a bit at the museum, they keep the redacted files are just a black mark through the file. So while you can't prove the name, there are usually ways that can lead you to understand whose name it was by the context, right? Mm-hmm. That's true. Gary, you've been doing a good job with that on social media. Certainly, it's all part the same. Now, again, we know a few things, Brian, that we just know intuitively or we know by experience. One is there is a nexus between money and power. Money can get you power, power can get you money.
And we had this discussion. We should at least have an addendum to that at a psychological level, it does relate to the unconscious too.
And it is.
Right.
And where does that come in? There's also a nexus between money, power, and sex.
Right.
There is a difference in the way sex is weaponized between males and females. For the most part, males dominant. They don't care. It's my right. Rape the women. It's, if I want to grab their pussy, I'm going to grab their pussy.
With at least, I guess a Freudian idea, or maybe it's a Jungian idea, is that the male will use his resources to get sex, where the female will use sex to get the resources. It's kind of like an opposite thing.
And that's the thing now, and because women, unfortunately, in America, since the day the Declaration was signed, no long before that, have been second-class citizens. There's no question. No question.
And by the way, I don't mean I'm not. I know, Dave, you know where I'm coming on this, but I want everyone to understand. I'm not alluding that it's like a sexual thing where he's no. This is unconscious. The libido.
Even consciously. Look, if you want to get something, right? It's sort of like this. People are horrified with terrorists doing bombings, right?
Right.
They don't have armies. How the hell else are they going to do it? With a woman, if you have the power, you can use that. It's been used in spying. It's there. Now, I would never presume to say why a woman does something, in specifically, but looking at it in general, I would tend to see that as a possibility. And it is playing out directly with the president and the first lady of the United States. What does Melania Trump have to offer Donald Trump except sex? What?
Shoes?
They don't fit. Her feet are bigger than Donald.
Then I can't think of anything else.
Of course not. So obviously that's, and Donald Trump, we know, is the last person you would want a son, grandson, or anyone to emulate in every way, but especially he is a misogynist. He overrates himself. One of my favorite women, Stormy Daniels, had said basically it's 3 inches or less, and I assume that's fully erect. That's not micro penis, but it's getting down in that area. So his first wife, Ivanka was his first wife, said, as it's on record as saying, he took every kind of dick extender you could get.
And he also had the scalp he actually had scalp reduction in those days. They would just literally take a section of your scalp out and sew it back together.
So we know that's playing.
We know it's not penis reduction. It would be scalp reduction for him.
But the idea is where does it go is what's interesting. Now I'm going to tie it in for a moment if I can. I'm going to move to the third and put them together. So we talk about this idea of him lying. Now, there was a teacher at Bridgeton High School, Brian knows him, I know him, who eventually was disbarred. You don't disbarred. His teaching license was taken away for having sex with students. He was jailed for 364 days. I knew him well. I represented him up until he needed a lawyer. I knew him personally. We taught the same grade. We were in the same department. The man, he was almost on Trump's level of lying. Almost. Not quite. And he didn't need to. Trump takes that even to a new thing. Now, if you would explain to me why, and anybody, I just gave that. You're going to tell a story, which he's told before, about his uncle. Apparently his uncle was, maybe we'll find out he was a janitor, but so far it seems that he was indeed a professor at MIT, but not a close, the Trumps are not a close family. We can see
right.
That. They never were. But anyway, so he comes out with this, he said before, I come from good stock. Okay, Hitler. Okay, eugenics. My uncle was, which makes him look even worse. Boy, did you not get any of your uncle's genius if he had any. So he comes out and he says this. He said, out of context, he just says, my uncle, in fact, he taught the Unabomber. Now, the Unabomber was pretty smart. And
absolutely.
First of all, the Unabomber never set foot as a student on MIT. He went to Harvard. That's number one. So he might have set foot on MIT trying to pick up a girl or get his bombing material, but he never did that. They were two different times. And that is such an easy thing to prove false. Now, that's a minor thing, but it's false. And I'll take it back to Epstein. The lies, some of them are hard to prove, but he is America's biggest liar.
Yes, he is.
There's no question about that. So why anybody would believe him to begin with? But when somebody says, my uncle was a professor at MIT, easy to check out, right? My uncle was a professor at MIT who taught the Unabomber, easy to check out. And why would the President of the United States or any normal person say, I have a relationship to the Unabomber through my family? Where? Why? How? Now, the Unabomber, which
Kaczynski, Ted Kaczynski, right?
Ted Kaczynski. When I was working at the museum, the FBI had closed its doors. This was before COVID. They're back open, by the way. Quick shout out to the FBI. If anybody's in the Washington area and you have some time, get a hold of your congressman, because it has to come through your congressman now. Tour the FBI building. They're open again. It's a phenomenal tour. We just took it recently, and it's almost as good as the old one. But anyway, when the FBI closed, they gave a lot of their stuff temporarily to the museum. So we had a whole floor, basement floor, dedicated to the FBI. And one of the things we had was Ted Kaczynski's actual cabin that he was apprehended in. And of course, it became fascinating way because it was the biggest, article there. But people were fascinated. Now, here's the thing about the Unabomber. Much of what he said, Brian, in his manifesto, which went on forever,
I heard that, yes. I didn't read it, but I heard.
I've read it, and I had to talk about it. It's not all that bad in terms of what he was asking for in the world. The problem is how he went about getting it. And that's why, it's so important. It's not just what you do, it's why do you do it and how do you do it. Right. And you don't do it with death. You don't do it with death. You just don't, not in that case.
Right.
But so now we've got this poor guy, CEO, having an affair, nothing. What would you guess? I'll put it on the spot. I bet you in Bridgeton High School, because that's an area we both know, that there's at least 7 teachers there currently having an affair. At least 7.
Ooh, I wouldn't. I would like to think 0.
Oh God, Brian! What?
I mean, are you talking about right now? Right now?
Right this very.
Oh, I'm talking. You're not talking with students, right?
No.
Okay, that's okay.
Oh no, not with students. So that's.
Oh wow.
Very rare.
Yeah. You mean when you're talking staff, not just teachers? You're talking about the security, police, administrators. Oh boy, yeah. I have suspicions about. Yeah, I would say so. I would agree.
Even more.
Yes.
Okay. So.
I shouldn't say that publicly, but I do have suspicions.
Well, I'll say it publicly.
Okay.
Now, there is a part of the affair that really only hurts the people involved. Okay? The spouses,
right?
If there are 2 spouses, or 1 spouse, or whatever. Unless, as many preachers do and get caught, or politicians do, unless you try to preach morality. So the question becomes with his CEO, did he preach morality? And we don't know that, right?
We don't know.
To his people. But for what we apparently do know is the fact that he was out. He was obviously out. They actually had a relationship because the way he was hugging her around that. They got caught on what they call the kiss cams now. They're all using it. Coldplay. And Jeff, you've got an interesting point. You do have an interesting point because a couple things happened. Okay, this is what basically happened in my mind. A couple who were not married with each other were out on a date. Basically, that much is proven. And then 2 things happen. Number 1, the lead singer for Coldplay calls them out saying, boy, they're either shy or they're having an affair. So that's from the stage. Actually, 3 things happen. Secondly, they did what Jeff just said. They didn't act normal, right? Which you can watch and see. But the third is maybe the most terrifying of all. That video doesn't exist. That Coldplay, what happened on that? Those kiss cams, they don't. Now, here's what happens. Another woman was shooting
Ah,
the
that
kiss
makes
cam.
sense.
She puts it out, and within a matter of moments, this non-person, or just a normal person like you, me, or anybody else, gets 1 million hits. The story is off and running. It becomes first the company comes out with a statement, then
A former worker, I know, at least one former worker has really gone off on him. He's saying
they're
they
all
cheated workers on stock options.
exactly now. And here's another thing, and I'm working on this, a project on this. Can a person have two moralities? Can you have a professional morality or a work morality that's different than your personal morality?
It's a good question.
They're all over the board on that. But then the wife, but then it gets this way. The real danger of this is we have to be aware, each and every one of us, that at any moment, anything we do, even inside our homes sometimes, can be subject to cameras. They're everywhere. So, the best rule is, yeah, sex is equal to, well, I guess if she screamed during sex the way she screamed singing songs, I guess that would be a loud handshake. But anyway, what you have now is anything you do in public. Yes, and Sandy, you're absolutely right. There's some indications, and again, one of the catchphrases now is subservient. What is it? Master subservient behavior. They don't use the word master subservient. Where, in other words, if you're ahead of the person in line and you're having an affair, you're guilty because the idea is you coerced someone into doing that. That's not necessarily true. But the idea is this thing is out there now. It's got a life of its own. I don't know if you see, they've got, don't cheat,
Right,
leave.
there you go, Judy. You said it right.
Judy, that's a great advice. And you want to know, very few people do that because they think they won't get caught. They think that, well, let's try this. I'm going to go in a daring area here. The question really is, can you love two people or more than two people?
You can,
One
but
time.
the thing is, you still have to make the professional decision. Or not even professional.
Well, I mean, in other words, and what's happening is a lot of young people are rejecting that idea till death do we part. They're forming polymorphy groups, where it's 6 men and 4 women. Not like it's different than the communes, but that's always been at play. I think what you have to do. My take on it is if you love your partner, you should, and they want you to be monogamous, then you should be monogamous. As tough as that can be. Now, again, we know these facts to be true in business, and that could be any business. A lot of times you get thrown in with people to work really long hours. You're really tired, but you don't want to go home yet, so you go out for a couple drinks. I mean, and companies are asking people to walk alone. And the number one place where affairs occur is in the work world. There's even a term for it: work wife and work husband. Have you heard that, Brian?
Yes.
Making rounds. And sometimes that's true, and sometimes it's not. And sometimes people will start stories. As I said, I defended a number of teachers accused of sexual misbehavior who was innocent as the day is long.
Can you give me a rough idea? Like, let's suppose you knew of 10 cases. Roughly, what percentage do you think were actually true? I mean, I know you might ask me to speculate on something here.
Okay, are you saying all 10 cases? Well, I'll give you one. I was the subject of one. There was absolutely no truth to it. I just started laughing, and it was started by the principal.
Really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, I did spend a lot of time with the woman, but it was not true. So I'm going to do 2 kinds. With the adults, out of 10, 9 are probably true. Mm-hmm. Adult.
And that's how powerful that. And again, we get into if I can go into psychology for a second, that love is the one thing that, at least when people think they're in love, that the famous poet Yesenin from Russia said, there's 2 things that you have no control over: is your death and love, how it hits you. And that's where people, despite all the possibilities of what could happen, you are willing to do it. So there is something. How could I put this? Something genuine about it in a certain sense?
Well, yeah, I know. There's also been a lot of studies done in this, and Brian, we may run over a couple minutes, but not many.
Right.
The idea is that, think about this as a normal relationship, or kind of not a normal relationship, a normal flow. 2 people fall in lust. Lust becomes love.
Right.
They get married, and then reality kicks in.
Right.
So there's a part of that says, man, I want that back again, and I can't get it. So they think they can get it. There's like a thrill. I've talked, to a lot of people. It's kind of the thrill of the chase again. It's kind of the thrill of satisfaction. And the misnomer.
And your subconscious won't know the difference.
And you have no, Brian. You're absolutely
and
right.
That's something where you have to give these people some leeway in this. You can't just automatically say, "Well, that's a schmuck right there."
Now, of course, but now here's what I find so interesting. America has judged, fairly or unfairly, this CEO.
It's going a bit overboard now, actually.
And his HR. And yet we have a president of the United States who is a sexual predator.
Right.
And he stays. What is that, people? What is that? Let's be consistent. Let's just be consistent.
They can't be. Do you? Honestly, I'm going to ask you a question, Dave, because we're getting closer to this with animals, where there are tests going on right now in major universities where they're giving longevity drugs to animals where they could, unless it's by accident, they could live forever, unless there's some mortal accident.
Right.
So let's suppose you have people who believe in heaven. Both of us don't believe in God.
Correct. Right.
If that was available, would they take it knowing they would be stuck on Earth living forever, or they get to go ahead? Would they purposely not take the pill? My suggestion would be, this is mine, I'm going to ask you, that the Christians or the Jews generally don't believe in heaven. Islam, yes, that they would still take the pill because they just don't know.
No, and I would disagree with you.
Okay.
I think a large percentage would want to do that, but it would hinge on some things. It would hinge on your health, right? In other words, if you could stay even 50 forever, maybe. But I'm almost 25 years past that. So,
no, but I'm saying if you could go back
go back in time.
Yeah, because if you can regenerate this, in other words, if the cell
itself. In other words, you're going to be you, but you're
right. Yes, I wouldn't put you in that. No, that's exact. I wouldn't want to. Be 70 years old.
Let me do that. Let me think for a minute. I still think there would be, I don't want to put a number on it. I'll think about it. I'll give you a number next week. I'll think about this week. I still think there would be a number, because think about this, Brian. If you really believe that there is a heaven, really truly believe.
Right.
And you believe that heaven is a reward.
Right.
And you believe that you're going to receive that reward. By definition, life has to be better in heaven. And you'll have more happiness there than you could ever achieve on earth. Even, try this on, Brian, for size, or you, I'm talking to everybody. In heaven, there is no sin.
Right.
Okay? Now, some people say, I'm going to hell then, because I like sinning a lot better than I do, But if you really believe that...
You like pleasure.
But here... a lot of your really zealot Christians believe that they're tempted every moment of the day. And they might give in. The only time they'll ever know that they made it is when they go to heaven. So I think it would surprise you. I think there'd be a lot of people who do what you said. I'll just stay here and run it. A lot of this I think there was another factor to factor in. Who would be there with you, right? You see that all the time. Yes. Real question. We'll stick around. The other side of that is too. We see that a husband dies and a wife dies within a month, vice versa. I mean, so, and another thing, we were talking about that today. We went out with a couple of friends who they're a little bit older than us. It's really nice when you have people that are older than you out there, very smart people. And we were actually talking about sort of the similar thing. And what we were talking about is, the question on the floor, four of us were talking about, were we born in the best of times? That would be the baby boomers. And my argument would be yes, for the simple reason that science and medicine is better today than it was yesterday, and it will be better tomorrow.
Correct.
Now, for the other things, no. But just the mere fact, and the one that we singled on was we were the first generation, the baby boomers, who didn't have to worry about polio and dying.
Right. And going into what do you call the lung machine?
Incubator. Yeah, I was in one. My first 12 days.
The iron lung or something like that?
Yeah, I had.
Oh my God.
I don't remember it, of course, but they didn't think I would make it, and a lot of people really wish I hadn't, I guess, over the years. But the idea of it is now people say, "Oh no, there's this, there's that, the other." A lot of the pressures we create ourselves. Okay, one of the pressures that I just don't know how you do it is there's always been change, but my mantra now is it's the rapidity of change, how rapid it is, and these things, like the kiss cam. Okay, my dad was a huge sports fan. I was raised to be a huge sports fan. One of the bonding things we did was through sports. He didn't come to many of my games. That wasn't what we did. But we would watch pro sports. We would go. He loved the horse races. He would take me to horse races. He would take me to ball games, baseball games. That was his thing. They didn't have a kiss cam, so he didn't have to worry about it. Now, he didn't have an affair, so he didn't have to worry about that either. But this idea of, it's not just in books anymore. 1984, they're all here. What I think surprises me, and this might be a place to kind of get wrapped up and maybe even start next time or pick up, is when I was young, I was fascinated, and still am, with science fiction, but a special kind of science fiction. I always liked dystopian science fiction or Armageddon, end of the world. That's what fascinated me. Now, I don't know what that says about my psyche. So I was really taken by 1984 and Brave New World. And more so than Fahrenheit 451 and some others. But they presented two different ideas. Then The Handmaid's Tale comes along, which is another dystopian. And you've got a few others that are out there now. I thought it would be either the world of 1984 or Brave New World or Handmaid's. It's all of them rolled up in one.
Right. There's no sense even debating which one it is. It's just everything.
No, we used to do that.
Right.
Nothing. We used to.
It was usually your favorite book or something like that, but no,
but no, it
doesn't matter.
Oh no, it's going to be 1984 because and no, that was based on fascism, and it'll be Brave New World where you take some, but it's everything at once. Now, I don't know if I mentioned this last show, so if I did, tell me. But I want to let I assume most of the viewers we watch are left wing liberal. I mean, that would be my guess. I don't think many conservatives would watch us, but I've had occasion now recently. 2 or 3 times to run across young people who are conservative. One group, they were here by the hundreds. They had T-shirts on. They were protesting at the Senate, and then came over to get something to eat at Union Station, and I was there. And they were, Brian, these were some bright people. My God. Yes, me too. That makes 2 of us. I still am a Vonnegut addict. But these, they were wrong, okay, but they were bright. And we have a tendency, liberals, to dismiss the MAGA people as dumb. They're not, all of them. And secondly, the ones who are leading them are not. They're really the evil ones. Heritage, Cato, the Libertarians, Stephen Miller, Charity of the Gods, that's debatable whether that's true or not. Then I ran into another group, it's my time, I was down in the metro area here, and I was just getting a soda at Subway, and a group who were even more evangelical came in, the kids. Now, I did not talk to the kids of that group, but I talked to their adult leaders. And outside of the fact that they were way to the right, they made sense. So my point is that I hope that those of us who are concerned about continuing the left, I hope we're looking and trying to make, make sure that our schools are not just turning out right-wing smart people. The one that was funniest, Brian, I haven't even told you about this, and I'll leave. As some of you know, many of you do, every single day, well, let's rephrase that. 13 days out of 14, I wear an anti-Trump t-shirt. That's what I do. That's one of the things I can do out there. And you get really interesting reactions. Obviously, most of them very supportive in this area. But I was talking to a homeless guy, and I went up to give him a little bit of money. And he said, and you could tell he was like a veteran because he had had the patriotic stuff on. So he looks at my shirt, and I never thought about this, Brian. This one shirt that I got, it says, "When tyranny becomes law, rebellion becomes duty." Again, when tyranny becomes law, rebellion becomes duty. I go up to him, I give him $1, I say, "Hey, I really like your t-shirt." And I say, "Oh, thanks." I mean, I get that a lot. But what he said next, this is what he said, Brian, exactly. I can tell you're one of us. And I knew we were off and running. He read that shirt that I was Aryan Nation or Proud Boy. And if you think, I mean, that's exactly what they said. We're going in to rid the tyrant. So I said, this is going to be a neat conversation. And of course, I played along just to see what they're doing. And I learned some facts, Brian, that you may not know. So I'm going to share them with the audience. Did you know that Black Lives Matter was a terrorist organization? Did you know that the government put AIDS in bananas? Because we all know how much black people are like monkeys and monkeys like bananas, and it was a way to control them. Did you know that?
No.
And that's what this guy's telling me. Now, he's crazy as a loon. He's not one of those kids. But the point is that some of the things we take, I mean, it's hard to be anti-Christian in a way because, you're not looked at as very, but I really don't care. I don't care what you label me. I do not believe that the Bible is the Word of God. I believe that the Spirit is individual. And once you get collective, then you give up your authority to a pope, to a priest, to a preacher, to someone other than that. And I don't believe that. So that's just the way I do it. But other people, they like the social ends. So you really do. You have to wonder about, look at what we looked at tonight. The rich, you have to wonder about them. They live differently than we do, Epstein and those guys. You have to worry about politicians with power, Trump and others, all of them. You have to worry about truth and lies. And this is where we are. Now, we were that way then. And what will be interesting, you and I won't live to see it, but the standard is you need about 100 years to understand history. But the danger of that is nobody's alive to tell you, when you're right or wrong about it. But scholars, it'll be interesting to see 100 years from tonight, if there's a show, maybe it'll still be Divided We Stand with two other people running it, what the view will be of this time. Because the premise is not atypical. The historical premise, as I've said before, and I'll maintain this forever until somebody can disprove it, the nation began a third, and a third. What do I mean by that? A third wanted independence, a third wanted to stay with Britain, and a third said, just leave me alone and let me drink my grog. Same thing now, a third, and a third. But the difference is human beings were the same, but we have the internet, we have TV, we have all these other things. And so as I leave tonight, I always ask you, so I'll ask first, and I'll go first tonight. Usually I'll let you go. Am I more optimistic or pessimistic than last Sunday? I am. And what makes me optimistic tonight is that rift that I hope develops even further. Oh, and the other thing, I keep saying this, I meant to say this earlier, sorry. Apparently, now this gets really fascinating. I don't know if this is even true yet, but I've read a couple of accounts. I'll try to verify it tonight. J.D. Vance went out to Montana, I believe it was Montana, to meet with Rupert Murdoch.
Yes, I heard that.
Now, there's only a couple possibilities. One, he went out there they had heard that Wall Street Journal was going to release this study, and they do have spies. I mean, that's nothing new. Presidents always know what newspapers are going to do before they do it. So he went out there to try to beg him off. Or he personally was tipped off through Peter Thiel or somehow that it was running, and he went out there to say, okay, let's use this so I can become president. So, one way he's just
or
a
to
puppet
smooth
Trump.
things out. Who knows?
That's what we don't know. Okay.
I don't know. Now,
So,
as far as
Brian,
myself, Dave,
yeah.
I agree with you that in the end, they will cannibalize each other. But that does not mean that it's going to, and I know you're not saying it's going to happen, but
No.
I until I can see a ray of hope, I'm going to go with reality. Not that I'm right, but in my
No, I
mind,
know.
the reality that this is what it is, and it is
Oh,
that bad.
part's true.
So,
It is that bad. It's just the question of will it
I
continue that bad?
even if they do cannibalize each other, the Democratic Party. I know what's happening in New York. People seeing that as a ray of hope that somebody.
No.
I don't think it'll be him, but that somebody that could get the general populace behind. We don't have anybody like that yet. I'd like to think that Pete Buttigieg would be the guy. He's a really intelligent man, but he's gay, and people are still messed up. There's nothing wrong
You
with
know,
him. It's just the
same
society's
with
messed up.
women. Same with women. So you have a few candidates. Gretchen Whitmer. Of course, you have Kamala back in the mix. Bernie, I wish they just take his name out. And Bernie's taking his own name out. He realizes that he's too old.
It's
He
it.
can be
It's too-
he can be advisor emeritus, and that's about all Bernie can do. Now, the one that's emerging, and I had him. The one that right now might be, for some of the wrong reasons, the number one or move up to the top is Gavin Newsom. You see him at number 2 in most polls, with Bernie being number 1, just because Bernie's identified. But that's not feasible. So it will be interesting, and I ask that question a lot of people down here if I know they're on liberal. Who's your guy? And it's all over. It's all over the place. Jamie Raskin actually had at the rally Thursday, I counted them 14 young people in Jamie Raskin Jamie Raskin T-shirts. So they're putting together. Everybody's. It's wide open. Again, you didn't ask, but this is my take on it. It is much easier to win as a Republican and stay in power than it is as a Democrat. Why do I say that? To actually be on the Republicans' good side, you have to appeal to men who are white, who are one of two things: rich or racist, the two R's. That's it. The women who somehow love those people will come along, and there you are. With the Democrats, you have the whole umbrella, plus they're fighting for their rights. Women want their rights, which they should. Gay want their rights, which they should. Hispanics, immigrants, unions. And so this big umbrella, it covers everybody, but it's much harder to target. Gavin should have replaced Biden. At that point, Judy, Newsom did not have that high standing. His standing is directly attributed to his standing up to Trump. So he's been doing climate and sea level president for so many years. Well, we'll have to see. Now, would you like to go out with the last thing? You have a Bridgeton Bulldogs hat on?
I like the show. I want to say one thing, Dick, because we were talking about, we don't have a lot of people watching, obviously, but today we did have a high point, as far as what I saw, with 19 viewers at one moment, which for us is like getting 20,000 viewers at one point. So.
Yeah, it really is. You know what? And what we would appreciate, and look, it's not about ego. This is fun. This is something I do. It's my give back. It's one of the ways that I can go. I do not, and I'll say this, I do not give money to political parties. But I take stands, whether it's wearing my Trump shirt out in public or doing this show, that also is necessary. But one of the things, it's always nice. Both Brian and I are musicians. And there's nothing worse, ladies and gentlemen, than having a band and playing to an empty house. When I say empty house, I once played a job where there were 5 people in the place and every one of them was getting paid to be there. 2 bartenders, a waitress, 2 waitresses, and the owner. It would be nice. Do we want Rachel? We're not going to get Rachel Maddow numbers, and nor do we want them. We're certainly not going to get Stephen Colbert numbers.
Yeah, we could never do what we do with
you
our
could.
family.
But I think, again, Brian, you bring it up all the time, but I think it's very important that people understand this. We would actually get more viewers if we did monetize.
Right, we would.
Because what happens with all the social media, if you monetize, they're going to get a piece of what you make. And they're going to, and you can buy viewers, names, but that's not what we do. And again, I appreciate every single person who watches it, whether it's on, when we're on, later. That's another.
We do get a few later. We get 10 to 20 people later, right?
Yeah, later. And, but this is like, I guess this is like the, bad analogy probably. This is like the mom and pop little grocery store.
Right.
We can't compete with the Acmes or the.
But you never do see a commercial on our program. And that's wonderful. It's like you're having YouTube Premium by watching it.
No, you're right. And that gets me more frustrated.
And we don't even advertise. Even on Premium, you have some of these people who will advertise their own shit. Because they know that they want to get beyond the premium thing. We don't even do that. We're not selling anything. No,
this show never will. Do I do it on other things? Yes, of course. But this one is.
We're up to 19 right now. I believe it or not.
I know. Maybe if we stay up all night, we'll get.
Somebody get one more. We get to 20. We won't break the record. I think 23 is the record. Share it and just 20 before we leave.
And a lot of people wouldn't say that because oh my God. But what is interesting though? 23 people, but approaching 1,600 on the page.
Right, and that's different. And by the way, that's a whole different thing. With Facebook was trying to promote their group pages right around when I started it. But when I did Head in the Box with Paul, when we had Guy McPherson on, we went from 120 subscribers to well over 1,000, and we would get 200 people in the chat when you had a guest. So if we did have a named guest, that's still a possibility. But you have to get a name, and most people, quite frankly, and this is why I don't even necessarily have to go after a named guest, because I don't like when they say, "Well, you're not big enough for me," and I don't want. Well, then, fuck you.
And look, that happens. I mean,
right.
Let's say you want to get AOC on the show.
Right.
For 18 viewers, she's going to take an hour out of her life. I don't think so.
Thank you, Judy. I'd love to get a house.
Oh yeah, but again, you're talking about, and these people are very big, and they get hit all the time. Now, what we're finding, even with Substack, as much as I like that, they're getting very incestuous is a charge word. I'm going to say they're getting very inbred as a charge word. The idea of it is Joy Reid gets a show, Jim Acosta comes on. I think actually, Reid was on first, and then they do the show together, right? Mm-hmm. But they both are names, so. And soon I think you'll see Lawrence Larry O'Donnell in there.
Yeah, we'll have 42 people over 24 hours.
Yeah,
they'll make it a movie called They Kill Horses, don't they? Or shoot horses, don't they? Right.
Well, that makes an idea. Maybe we could get Jane Fonda on.
But she's kind of up there.
Well, it is interesting. And another thing for anybody, I don't know if you, I mean, I can't speak for you, Brian, but I don't get disillusioned in this, because the idea of it is this is as much a release for me, where I have to formulate my thoughts and make sure they're sound.
Right, the quality's here. I mean, and I don't say this is a great. We're spontaneous, but we've put in a lot of effort prior to. Yeah, well, Divided We Stand. You earn it from reading. That's where you get your fuel.
And we could, and we're not going to do fashion because, no offense, Brian, but the maroon doesn't go with the shirt. So
I'm colorblind; it doesn't matter. So
well, the other thing is, here's my last question. I promise. What I was researching this week? It was weird as hell, but it bothered me. When did men, and I'm not fashion at all, but when did men start wearing brown shoes with black and gray suits?
I don't do that, and that at least I don't try to do that. I definitely
nobody, but it is now the number one trend. And also, when you go out there, of course, again, Cumberland County isn't here. A lot more suit wearers here, and also navy blue is out now. It's a royal blue. So I started researching it, and look, and here's how it happened. And it's the same thing with MAGA politics.
Trump wears the navy blue.
Now he didn't, but he does now. No, he had a bright blue on the other day. He's also moving his ties. Here's what happened. De La Renta and a couple of the other big houses, they're always looking for something new because they make money, right? So they debuted this idea of brown shoes, which meant everybody had to run out and get these new. Oh, and I'm not.
I really do thank you, Sandy. That was very nice of you to have. And we already have you on here, so you're welcome to come on anytime.
Sandy's always welcome. In fact, Sandy, you could replace Brian anytime.
Right. Come on next week with us.
Yeah, deal around in these, and so they started with, and then whether they got directly to them or they just went, the person, it came down to three people, and one of them was David Beckham, who is one of the world's leading male influencers for fashion, and they got like a couple actors, and then so it started with the fashion designers to make money, the influencers to show it was there, and I did a survey the other day in Washington D.C. I said I'm going to survey 20 men with black or gray suits on. 19 of the 20 had brown shoes. If you had done that survey 4 years ago, 3 years ago, it'd have been just the opposite. So whether it's politics, fashion, whatever, we have a nation of followers, and we need to guide those followers in good fashion sense or good political sense.
All right. Well, Sandy, we'll definitely have you on. If you want to do it next week, I know you're saying that people will see you as a pariah. No, don't worry about that. Nobody watches the show.
Sandy, I mean, I have to.
We have 20 now. My God, it's a record for this year.
No, Sandy, what What makes you think you? In what sense do you think?
Because she's on that. She has that problem with her channel was shut down on YouTube.
Listen, then you have to come on.
Right.
Listen, then you have to come on because guess what? There are many ways other than YouTube. YouTube is just a way. You can go directly to Substack and bypass YouTube. I mean, YouTube might think it's all that, and right now it is. But there are the Discord, there are other places. So I'd love to get us shut down by YouTube. It would mean a great, just think, Stephen Colbert is more popular today in terms of name recognition than he was this time last week.
And let's hope that he has the better shows too.
Because he's getting blacklisted and driven out. I would love for YouTube to say this show, we're not going to air it. So Sandy, please come on the show.
Yes, please come on the show.
You're an excellent person, excellent guest. The only thing wrong, we'll discuss, we'll get it out of the way first. I don't understand your comment about Brian being an excellent guest, but that's for a time we'll do on air.
All right. Yeah. So anyway, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dave. Interesting show tonight. Last couple shows have been very, very interesting. We've covered a lot of territory, and we plan to keep doing that. So, all right, Dave, I'll see you soon. I'll talk to you, and then next week, Sunday. Sunday next week, I am okay. I'm okay next week. Okay. Saturday's bad.
Whatever. Like I said, and then you make the decision because I'm good or bad whatever night.
All right. See you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.